Now, so George Bush, I mean, all these people rise up to the ranks, the same club.
Right.
No wonder, I saw a little TV clip one time where a reporter was asking George Bush and others about the Order of the Skull and Bones. All these guys were shocked that somebody even mentioned the term, and they just would not discuss it at all.
Right.
And the reporter said, "I understand that as part of the oath, you don't discuss it." And George just flat out said, "It's just not to be discussed." And that was the end of the subject. Now, it's because, I mean, if this really got out, that these guys are all inducted because they've got some kind of homosexual
Right.
thing on them.
Indoctrination. Or induction. But I'm being strangled financially by this Army intelligence group, JAG group, that my husband.
Now, JAG, is that JAG?
JAG, Judge Advocate General. I think American citizens do not realize how many JAGs are in our court system, and they take orders. They are in the chain of command, they're active reserve, and they are in our court system everywhere you look.
Not just federal, state and local?
Everywhere, yeah. And they're going to meetings once a month, and if there is a case, like many of the military intelligence wives, like myself, and we have information that would come out in a divorce hearing or whatever, they totally control it. It is Judge John Moore, in my case, in Virginia Beach, is an Army Ranger. He is active reserve. He's a VMI Army colonel. He's a graduate of VMI. In Virginia Beach, in the courts, there are at least 6 judges, and I'm including commissioners in that, because in Virginia we have a system where the commissioners do a lot of the decisions, and all of these in Virginia Beach who take care of military wives are military judges.
No, you mentioned the term VMI. What is that?
Well, VMI is Virginia Military Institute, and it's where General Marshall, the Marshall Plan, went to school. It's a little West Point. There's a lot of tradition there, but it's based on the Greek sort of Spartan military concept. And my father went to Washington and Lee, which is also in Lexington. And I know that there is some sort of, I won't say cult, but there probably is some sort of
club?
secret society,
Okay.
and so it's very, very tight-clipped. But what I was trying to say is that the judges are military men, and they're not independent. They take orders.
They take orders.
There's a chain of command, and in my particular case and the other 11 military wives whom I have met so far, there are many, many more, but they've all been handled the same way.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a normal divorce at all.
Yeah, I've heard of these kind of situations before, but it's never been put so concisely and so reasonably that there would be a connection. Why some people just, no matter what attorney you have, it doesn't matter.
Oh, yeah.
The divorces and the settlements of assets never go the right way.
No, and there's a FISA court, which I know is involved in my case.
What kind of court?
Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. It's a Justice Department secret court that American citizens are not aware of. There have been a couple of articles on it. It's a small group of men, and I think there's a woman on it. I believe there's 7 justices. And in reality, the article that I read, which was given to me by Mike Fuller, and I know he would not mind me using his name, he's a government assassin. He was like my husband, a government assassin who
when you say assassin, you talking like character assassination or kill people?
No, killing people.
Okay.
He's a mercenary, government mercenary.
Okay.
He was in Afghanistan and then Rhodesia, South Africa. And I met him and his wife through Sarah McClendon. He's a real wonderful patriot who is speaking out about what the NATO community and the Army and Marine Corps are doing.
And Sarah McClendon, she's an old war horse, isn't she?
Sarah saved my life, literally.
Really?
Yeah. I had been having break-ins starting the night of March the 4th, after I was calling everywhere to see if I could find my husband. He would, disappear at times. And I found my husband's diary, which I have here, which they have been not anxious to have get out.
Uh-huh. No, they meaning?
General Sheehan, General Krulak, Marine Corps colonels, generals, Al Gray, Cook, and especially General Joy.
Joy.
General Jim Joy.
Uh-huh.
And General Carl Steiner they're evil men. And they are in this diary meeting with my husband almost every day in Beirut. They trained the men in black who killed those people in Waco. It was General Joy and General Steiner. Steiner's army, dirty tricks, special operations. And this is what my husband does for a living, is train mercenaries, young boys from countries like Romania, Cuba, Dominican Republic, Haiti, all these countries. They're training them to be murderers. And the taxpayers' dollars are paying for this.
Okay, now they train them just through the normal channels of the military. These kids join the Army or the Marine Corps, and then they select these kids based on some criteria to train them?
They psychologically profile them. The profile, which is similar to my husband's and Lee Harvey Oswald's and McVeighs and some of the others who were all part of this program. Jeffrey Dahmer was profiled and hidden. You know, what most Americans do not know is that all of these men were
Jeffrey
Army.
Dahmer, he has a military background?
Of course. They're all Army.
Oh, okay.
They were all picked out because they're perverted or twisted.
Oh.
Yeah.
Sexually perverted.
Sexually perverted, and therefore, you know.
Yeah.
Well, now I don't think McVeigh was perverted the way Dahmer was, but certainly the group that my husband is overseeing are twisted.
So part of the criteria, they look for people who have got something in their history that gives them a weird bend.
Yeah.
They were molested when they were a child, or they come from dysfunctional families, abuse, whatever.
Strong mother, weak father, no father, poor. Because these guys are looking for security, so they will stay in the military and do anything for that security. This was my husband's scenario. My husband and Oswald are just two peas in a pod.
Huh.
Exactly the same personality, the same type, in the same elite group, I might add, which was doing work with communists and Russians, with Czechoslovakians and with Romanians. I met assassins, I met drug lords, Fahim Kordobawi, whose family were the drug lords in the Bekaa Valley. I mean, he knows the elite of the elite of the elite, and that's why I was warned twice not to talk.
And you were warned...
I was told that I would be killed. I was told that...
Your husband warned you about this, or...?
Oh, my husband warned me early on in it, but he knew that he loved me in the beginning. I'm sure he really did. But he's a robot, my husband, except when he's drinking. And I think that's why he drank, because the first 3 years of marriage, he was telling me everything. And I come from a very strong Protestant Southern culture, which, you know, when you're talking about shooting people like ducks, the only thing I can relate it to is my brothers going duck hunting, and that's what George would tell me it was like. Killing is just, you know, it's nothing. There's no emotion involved. You just get rid of somebody. And he said he was an existentialist and that these murders were necessary, and, you know, very matter of fact. And I'd sort of go, yep, and we'd be eating dinner, and I was trying to get him to know Christ, you know, to sort of understand a little bit about my background and America's background. But his group they are not Christians. They're what he calls existentialists, and they study German Clausewitz and Nietzsche, Sartre, Camus, Montesquieu. And his thesis at Princeton, which was written for him by a very good friend of his named Todevay, who was a French count, and his thesis was on this. And it was in French, but my French is better than his, so he could not have written that by himself. I know that. I know it was written for him. But in the intelligence world, and in the communist world, and the world that my husband was in, one had to know French, because all of the terrorist trainers and the guys who were funding all the guerrillas and everything were in Paris and New Orleans. They would go back and forth. Still, the 4th Marines is out of New Orleans. And that's been going on a long time, ever since Disraeli. Even before, I think. But they had hit squads and, you know, undercover groups in New Orleans. And George would go to New Orleans, all the Marines. I mean, this is where they train, do terrorist training, Lake Pontchartrain and places like that.
Okay, and then this would be during the 1980s?
Yeah, 1980s.
Okay.
From I think New Orleans has been a school for a place where debauchery and murder and cults and
Flourished.
yeah.
Well, there's a New Orleans connection with the JF Kennedy assassination.
Well, you see, Oswald, my husband and Oswald were in the same club. General Jim Joy is in that club. General Louis Buell, who is my husband's benefactor, or whatever you want to call it, is in that club. There is in fact, I've got the name of, there are Russians in that club.
Yeah, feel free to grab any reference material.
Yeah. What I want to tell you about General Al Gray, my husband was the chief of staff for General Al Gray, who was the commandant of the Marine Corps. And I probably shouldn't say this on the tape, and you all can get rid of it, but he's a homosexual.
Gray. Okay.
He's what they call a cherry Marine. Now, I'm not anti. I'm trying to find my. I hope I've got it. Yeah, here it is.
This
Vietnam
term
War.
cherry Marine,
Marine.
That's a common phrase in the military.
See, the thing is, they're guys and they're girls, and I just came from such a real prudish culture.
Yeah.
That's
fine. You came from a normal culture.
Right. And I'm not judging them, but the Vietnam War, I know a lot about that, about the MAXOG program and the Phoenix program, because George was involved with a very important part of that. Not important really, but he and Al Gray and Louis Buell and Michael O'Boyle and Ollie Whipple were. Do you remember the Manguez and the Pueblo? Was it the
the seizure of that little ship?
Yes.
Yeah.
This was. It's run by the mob. Then it was a mob military partnership, joint. It's a joint operation in Korea and in Vietnam. The highest levels of the Marine Corps and the Army in those special operations levels, the individuals are actually in the mob. New Jersey.
You're talking about the mafia type mob?
I'm talking about the Brooklyn, New Jersey mob. My husband, Al Gray, Sheehan, they're all Brooklyn. Cap Weinberger. Heinz Kissinger, there's the Boston mob, which was shipping weapons back and forth to Northern Ireland. And I don't want to get too deeply involved in that, but it goes, Israel, some of the Zionists who came over from Germany, according to my husband, were, he works with those people. They do a lot of money laundering in the banks, cash transactions for the drugs that they're bringing over through Latin America, the Southern Mafia, the Dixie Mafia, which is now my husband's involved with in Miami. The military are all involved once they retire. They're, they go into this drug and secondary weapons sales. And before I forget, I want to find the name of this Russian who worked with Al Gray, who was my husband's boss, and trying to see where I wrote it. I may have to look and find that another.
It's no trouble at all. How are we doing over there, guys? Sound good? How much time is rolled on the clock? On your clock? You can speak. So
20 minutes.
20? Okay, good.
I can't find it right now. I'll find it.
Right.
The Vietnam was really important because a lot of experiments were done on boys who went over there.
Mm-hmm.
I had, since my husband disappeared and since they have been psychologically trying to destroy me, financially trying to destroy me, because I'm telling the truth. His first wife, I know, was murdered.
Okay.
She was, according to a psychiatrist whose name I probably won't give because he's an honorable man. I was given permission before I went public
Mm-hmm.
with Sarah McClendon at the press club anonymously, but they knew who I was on the 3rd of July, 1996, was when I came out with a small group of people. But before that time, they were trying to handle me, to try and get me to be quiet. They tried threatening me and so forth. And I'm trying to remember where I was, what I was going to, the point I was going to make. I can't remember now what I was going to. It was something important. Oh, yeah, General Jim Joy. I called General Jim Joy on the phone. I was trying to find where my husband was because I didn't know whether I'd have any money to, food to eat or what. He just walked away, and I knew that the Marine Corps knew where he was. But I was being handled psychologically. On the 4th of March, my home was broken into. They had elaborate plans to handle me.
The 4th of March, 96?
1996.
96.
And keep in mind, he had disappeared on the 28th of December.
Of 96?
Of 96, 95.
Okay,
So put yourself in my shoes. I had no idea where he is. He's done this before. And each time I was totally traumatized. So I get...
What happened during this break-in?
Well, they were looking for the diary, which I have here.
Okay.
I don't have the original copy, but this is the diary.
Okay, can you lift it up?
Sure.
Yeah, just...
This is it. It's his Beirut diary.
Kind of hold those.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. This is it.
Okay.
And it's in his handwriting. The Beirut diary tells how the intelligence community, the Army and Marine Corps assassins, snipers, are how they operate in the city during a crisis. My husband was the liaison between the White House and President Jamal. So my husband is a friend of Scrowcroft, McFarland's a Marine. All of these men are personal friends of George's. Colby, I spoke with personally on the phone. 2 weeks later, he was murdered. He went to Princeton. My husband knew him. He knew my husband. He told me, Colby told me that...
Now this is General Colby?
No, this is William Colby, who was head of the CIA.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Who was murdered in a...
so-called boating accident.
I know exactly how that happened because, you see, the SEAL teams 6, 4, 6, and 8 are on the East Coast, and then the odd numbers on the West Coast. And some of the people who are affiliated with the SEALs, I shouldn't say that. I'm not going to say it, but...
Well, it wouldn't be hard for a SEAL to come from underwater and tip the boat over and make sure the man's dead, that sort of thing?
The Israelis train with the SEALs. They do a lot of wet ops, murders, over here because of some sort of arrangement. The young boys, I met 3 young assassins on a bus, going up back and forth with Sarah as I went on the bus because they were sabotaging my car. so often. So I sat next to two young assassins, one from Romania, one from Haiti. And I let them know that I understand, how it is. And this little boy cried. I won't mention which one it was because it may get back to him. But he told me it was the same scenario. His mother, he lives on $850 a month. Now, these are mercenaries working. The taxpayers are paying mercenaries. The taxpayers are paying young men who are not citizens of the United States to kill innocent people, women and children. They get on a flight from Norfolk and Oceana. They fly to Stuttgart, and I was told this is what they do. Then they go by a special helicopter to countries like Turkey, like the part of Iraq, to Algeria, to parts of Africa, and they do wet ops. They'll just, murder 5, 10, 20 people.
See, we want to talk about Henry Kissinger, but also I introduced the idea about George Bush. 3, 2, 1. Now, so George Bush, all these people rise up to the ranks, the same club. Right. No wonder, I saw a little TV clip one time where a reporter was asking George Bush and others about the Order of the Skull and Bones. All these guys were shocked that somebody even mentioned the term, and they just would not discuss it at all.
Right.
And the reporter said, "I understand that as part of the oath you don't discuss it," and George just flat out said, "It's just not to be discussed," and that was the end of the subject. Now, that's because, if this really got out, that these guys are all inducted because they've got some kind of homosexual
right.
thing on them.
Indoctrination. Or induction. They have to do that.
Yeah.
They do that.
Even
in a coffin. And it's even now coming into the military totally. The chiefs do that. They put them in the coffin. They do the bowling ball trick.
Okay, you're going to explain this. What happens when you get in the coffin? Why do you get in a coffin?
Oh, they get, when you get your eagles, that's a German thing.
Okay.
It's what the German high command did, and most of them, had the boyfriends and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
the Krupps and all of that. It is a German thing that they say goes back to Greece, and it's all the male Marine-looking men that they do it with.
Uh-huh.
So now the chiefs have to do that. What they do is George said it's like a zoo. They get everybody really drunk. And they sometimes call it dining in. Shellback is another time that they do it. Not everybody does it, but the ones who do it, if they're young, they get right up to the top. It's a...
okay, well, what actually do they do? They've got a coffin, they get
anal
inside
sex. That. They do... They put them in the coffin and they do things.
Okay, they perform things on each other?
Yeah, while they're all around there going drunk. And
I see. So there's a guy in the coffin.
Yeah, and he's the one who
is the recipient of all the acts.
Right.
Yeah. Probably safe to conclude these are oral sex acts on this guy or something like that. Okay.
Yeah, oral and anal, whatever.
Yeah.
But
what's the significance of the coffin?
I don't know.
It's the mystique about the skull and bones
what's
and death.
What's interesting is the young SEALs, Delta Force, the ones who go from Army to BUDS, the BUDS training SEALs, BUDS is the emerging SEAL group.
Oh, I see. They're budding SEALs.
Budding SEALs.
I see.
And they have to break into houses. Their training exercise is to break into civilians' houses.
For practice.
For practice. They broke into my house. When George and I were first married, I had many underwear. This is terrible to say, but lingerie. I had lots of, I didn't buy much, but it all disappeared. And then when the psyching was beginning, I had white blouses, but they would all have black dots on them. I'd say, George, here's another blouse with a black dot.
It was just a little message?
This is somebody's message, Or I would, after George left, it was batteries in a drawer. You can't tell the police I opened up a drawer where I had 6 batteries and now I've got 50 batteries. They're going to say, well, of course you're crazy, And I started my little sob with a screwdriver. And, I was always looking around for screwdrivers. Well, one day I come home and there are about 12 screwdrivers on the table, neatly placed. Well, you can't call the police and say, I've got 12 screwdrivers, You can't tell people that you've got black dots on all your white blouses. Your shoes are disappearing. And then, this is really, I called the police the first break-in, which was the night of March the 4th. The night before, I went to see General Joy at the Marriott.
Yeah.
Well, I had already called the police when I was battered, because I was just bruises. I made O.J.'s wife look like Marilyn Monroe. I mean, you talk about. And I was doing this because I thought it would help him, have 45s put to my head. And he's laughing. He'd strangled me and put his finger on my jugular vein. And he'd just say, now don't you dare move. Or I'd be lying in bed and he'd do a jap where he'd just push me off the bed. You can't believe what horror I went through to try and get this man to understand what Christ's love is about. People say, oh, well, you should have left. Well, I took my marriage vow seriously. I knew he was injured psychologically by the war, by whatever he was made to do. So, I'm fine. I just sacrificed a lot. I was in a big wrestling match with a crazy guy, But I still love the little boy within. He's very troubled. But anyway, I called the police after a number of little break-ins. And guess what? The policeman they sent was a little short guy with a short haircut whose name was Shorty Satterwhite.
Okay.
And Shorty Satterwhite was saying, oh, now, Miss Briggs, now you're just making this up. Now, Miss Briggs, this is just, you're just traumatized. Your husband's gone, blah, blah, blah. I found out he was a 20-year Marine.
Huh. Okay.
And not only that, but there's another part of his life. But that's okay. He's a nice guy. But he was a Marine.
And he takes orders.
Of course he does. He's still reserve. So I think, okay, I'll call the FBI. I'll let them know what's going on. I heard about the FISA court and that they, because I'm talking about William Colby, maybe they think I'm a threat because I know all these international people. So I'm just going to call them and tell them what's going on. So I called Torrance, who's the head of the FBI, and he's too busy, too busy. So he sends this guy, Dan McNally, out. And Dan McNally is a very nice guy, and he has this girl interview me, and I type out something about George's history and what I know. Guess who else is a 20-year Marine? Dan McNally.
Mm-hmm.
And it just so happens that Dan McNally's best friend, and he's not married either, but that's all right, his best friend, who is from North Carolina and never married, is a best friend of Fred Hentz, who's the one who took me to this place, Mahi Maz, where I had the 2 death threats, who was graduated from college in Plant 59. He was intelligence. His father was a German high, part of the Kaiser's elite group.
Mm-hmm.
He was NATO colonel. which I thought was pretty neat, and that's why they knew the profile. Kay likes NATO people because she's going to learn a little bit about another culture, you know. And his and I'm not saying that because his family were high command, but he was also an existentialist. And
okay, and again, for our viewers that may not know the term existentialist, you mean?
An existentialist, according to my husband, which he is one, Fred, hence all of these people are existentialists, they believe in doing whatever it takes. It doesn't matter what the law says.
Mm-hmm.
They will do anything necessary to get what they want politically,
okay, and
economically and whatever. In other words, killing a leader, killing 5 people, killing 20 people, according to George, is a lot better than war. This is the way they rationalize it. You didn't used to kill women and children in war when the British Army, when they were pure kind of, you didn't go out and kill. I think Dresden, they did do some of that, but that was Walt Whitman Rostow and his crowd. And he's a very dangerous man, because Walt Whitman Rostow is a communist.
Okay, and in what capacity is he?
Oh, he was one of the wise men in Kennedy's administration. I think he was probably responsible for the movement that got Kennedy murdered. I believe it was an Israeli group which did it with some of these rogues.
Okay, now when you mentioned wise men, is this an insider term?
Wise men, yeah. Kennedy's wise men were guys like, the Harvard crowd. And he was trying to bring them in to change things around a lot.
Uh-huh.
Walt Whitman Rostow was the one who got us into the Vietnam War because he wanted to sell the weapons and stuff. He and Victor Krulak, who is the present commandant's father, Krulak was his lackey. Walt Whitman Rostow's lackey. Walt Whitman Rostow went with Taylor, General Taylor, and wrote the report that got us into the Vietnam War. And all the time that the Pentagon was saying, no, 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 he was a cheerleader for the weapons sales. He and Henry Kissinger.
Mm-hmm.
He and Henry. Walt Whitman Rostow, Eugene Debs Rostow, these were communists, named for communists. Eugene Debs Rostow and it's either his son or his other brother, runs the big Boston mob, the port there. His name is Nicholas Rostow, with the Weld, with William Weld. They've done all that drug business in Mexico for years. They had that Russian, the one who was murdered by the assassin, Ramon. He was a competitor, Stalin's competitor, and he escaped. Very famous Tolstoy.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Tolstoy became a Christian at the end, and you can't become a Christian. That's a death warrant. So they killed Tolstoy because he was becoming too, I think, now I don't know the whole story. There's probably a lot more to it, and I see completely the wrong picture there. But Tolstoy was murdered by this same Parisian, Spanish, Czechoslovakian, Georgian, Russian group,
okay,
which are all part of the former Abwehr.
All right.